First, the never-ending election. Never-ending elections are so bad for the United States. As President Biden hits his one-year mark in office, Donald Trump hits a wall, repeating his usual lies at a rally in Arizona overnight. The rallies themselves are barely news anymore. What's newsworthy, what's interesting, is the way these rallies are covered, or the way they're ignored. For example, here's what Trump said at the very top of the rally Saturday night, calling the media the big lie.
Last year we had a rigged election and the proof is all over the place. We have a lot of proof and they know it's proof. They always talk about the big lie. They're the big lie. But the fake news and the lamestream media refused, and they refused to talk about it.
So he's actually right about that. Major networks and newsrooms mostly do ignore Trump's lies. ABC's Morning Show today, no mention of the rally. NBC, no mention of the rally. Even Fox and Friends only mentioned Trump a couple of times this morning. Fox did not hype the rally in advance. Fox did not air it live, did not play all the greatest hits afterward. They're much busier with Biden bashing. So Trump fans had to seek out smaller channels like Newsmax, One America News, and Right Side Broadcasting in order to get their fix. These channels treated the rally like a Super Bowl with hours of pregame coverage and live interviews from the scene. This Newsmax reporter almost nailed it. She referred to Trump having almost a cult following.
Why does Donald Trump have such a strong following of, it's almost like a cult following of people like no other president has ever had?
The truth about Trump's cult following is that it's a relatively narrow slice of America. Most Arizonans were not rushing to the rally. The vast majority of Americans don't care enough about politics to spend their Saturday night listening to a former president rant and rave. Most people didn't care, didn't give one hoot. But for those MAGA diehards who do want to watch, there are multiple startups and channels fighting for that sliver of audience. And in the case of Newsmax, look at this. They run ads that fill up half the screen during the speech. Trump is free content for these channels, and he promotes them in turn. But one of the channels, One America News, is in trouble this weekend. Bloomberg broke this story. Its biggest distributor, its biggest source of revenue, DirecTV, is dropping the conspiracy channel in a couple of months. DirecTV says this is a routine decision, but on the far right, it's being cast as a conspiracy to banish dissenting voices. The reality about One America News is there's very little news. They don't have newsrooms around the world. They're mostly a propaganda channel, promoting 1/6 conspiracies and all the rest. But Trump said that the owners of One America were at his rally Saturday night. He said he was hanging out with them before the show, and he attacked AT&T for dropping the channel. What's interesting is his information's out of date because AT&T spun off DirecTV last year. AT&T is also in the process of spinning off CNN and the rest of Warner Media. But Trump suggested that his fans should retaliate by dropping AT&T. You know what? He's encouraged boycotts before. Nothing ever happens. A lot of times these rallies, to the extent that they are covered by the news media, people talk about the size of the crowd and they portray Trump as really strong and powerful. But I think his rallies are becoming a show of weakness. He tells his fans they should drop AT&T. It's not going to happen. It never has before. He tells his fans to do this, and that. Some of them, a small number, do tune into these fringe channels if they can find them somewhere. But when even Fox chooses not to carry a Trump rally at the start of the midterm year, you know something's going on. That's not strength. That's a weakness for the former president. Now, as for the current president, we're going to hear from him this week as Biden holds his first formal press conference since November. I want to get into that with my two next guests, two former White House insiders turned political analysts. Alyssa Farah, a veteran of the Trump White House, and Joe Lockhart, a veteran of the Clinton White House, both now CNN analysts. Welcome to you both. Alyssa, did you watch the Trump rally?
No, like most Americans, I was watching the Patriots and Bills game, and I was kind of surprised that they would decide to host this big coming back rally for Donald Trump when the rest of the country is wanting to watch this exciting football game. But to your point, Brian, yes, the former president has lost steam in legacy media. But what I would not discredit is how much these sort of fringier sites, how much viewership they are getting, whether it's Steve Bannon's War Room, OANN, Newsmax, that people are still tuning in. And I'd say we are going to regret it if we think that he is not coming back and we don't prepare accordingly and we don't cover these incredible, terrifying lies that he was spouting last night. Those do warrant getting coverage because it shows you what he's planning to do in the months ahead, in the year ahead. He's still stoking the lies about the election being stolen. So to some degree, it does warrant news media coverage.
So my brain gets a little jammed when I hear a former White House communications boss say he was delivering terrifying lies to the crowd. We're only a year out since his presidency, and it sounds like you are fully disturbed by the prospect of a Trump 2024.
Oh, absolutely. And I've been outspoken about this. He resigned his right to ever serve as president again after January 6th. In lying to the public about the fundamentals of our democracy and the fact that we had a legitimate election and Joe Biden legitimately won is beyond destructive to the future of this country. And Republicans, my party, cannot dismiss that. They cannot discredit it. He is going to continue to stoke these lies, and it will be our undoing if we are not paying attention and taking him very seriously when he talks about, wanting to stack state officials so that in the future electors are going to go for him. He's doing this all over the country. We need to be paying attention to it.
Joe, what do you make of what Alyssa said about the balance of how much to pay attention to these rallies or not?
Well, I think the rallies and Donald Trump needs to be paid attention to because he still has a stranglehold on the Republican Party. And these things around the country are undermining our democracy in plain sight, right in front of us. They don't get the attention they deserve because people kind of dismiss them. They should not be dismissed. This is our democracy we're talking about. And I'll say this about lies. The Trump party lied, presidency lied from the beginning, lied from the first day. And it's a hard habit to break. Alyssa herself on Friday tweeted that Joe Biden didn't do a education program on vaccinations. He went right to mandates. That's absolutely not true. Joe Biden did more events promoting vaccinations in the first 6 months of his presidency than anything else. So I guess some habits are hard to break.
All right, Joe, you got let's respond.
Well, hey, listen, Brian, you got me and Joe to agree at least on the first part of that. I responded and followed up to that and actually had a great conversation with Ron Klain. It was certainly not fair to say that Biden did nothing on public awareness. That's not the case. I do hold the position that he could have done more. I encourage the Biden administration to partner with Republican governors. If you had Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis do an ad together in Florida saying, you can trust this vaccine, this is safe, that would go so much further than putting in place mandates that we kind of knew were going to get knocked down at the state level. So I would just say that real quick. But Brian, I would mention this as well. An interesting juxtaposition in the Republican Party last night was the swearing in of Governor Youngkin in Virginia. So this is a man who came in, made some smart education reforms immediately. He honored Martin Luther King. He did a day of service, and then he met with faith leaders in the community. That's what my party could be. And then the split screen of Donald Trump spouting conspiracy theories and lies and hosting fringe figures in Arizona. It's a time for choosing. I mean, the time for choosing should have been sooner, but we've got better options out there, Youngkin being one of them. And I'm just stunned that after all of this, there is still such a following and such a stranglehold by Donald Trump.
Well, like when DirecTV is dropping One American News and Fox is ignoring Trump's rallies, I think something's going on, but it's going to require more reporting to really know. Joe, can we go to Biden for a moment? Because I'd like to hear a Democrat's point of view about Biden at the one-year mark. How is the press treating Biden as he heads into that one-year mark?
Listen, I think the press is failing. They're treating him unfairly. First off, there ought to have been a dividend for returning truth and decency to the White House. And we didn't get that. We didn't get it at all. We've kind of returned to the snarky attitude that we saw with Trump and in some respects to Obama. And I'll give you an example about some of the decisions that get made. As I said, from the very first briefing, the Trump spokespeople lied. They lied every day, every briefing. And the majority of those briefings were aired live on television. Jen Psaki's in there now telling the truth. She's telling us what's going on in the government, what people need to hear. And they're rarely on live television. So that tells me that this is more about entertainment than it is about news. It's more about getting viewers than letting people know what's going on in the country. And that's a failure as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting. Press briefings every day, press conferences very irregularly. Let's look at the past. A few presidents will show compared to Biden. Biden's been holding formal press conferences less often. There's the data. However, he does hold informal Q&As quite often, more than other past presidents, where he answers a few questions with the press corps after an event. So that's the data. Now, we have a formal press conference coming up here this week. It's been announced almost a week ahead of time. What do you make of that strategy, Alyssa?
It kind of goes against my PR 101. You just don't know what the news cycle is going to be. So to announce it so far in advance kind of builds this expectation. But look, anytime the president is talking to the American people and taking questions from press, it's a good thing. Biden's challenge is this: his press secretary does speak to the press daily. That is a good thing. But there are very confusing, conflicting guidances going out around COVID. He needs to be answering the questions more regularly. If you can make sense of the CDC guidances on quarantine, I would love to hear the answer, because I know most Americans who do take COVID very seriously are genuinely unclear on some of the policies around it. So I think that's going to be a big focus of it. I hope he's able to provide clarity.